Okay, now I'm going to take this half and this half, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky because I have to get that nice and neatly on there exactly where it was in the first place, preferably without making any double impressions. And that feels, I can sort of feel it lock into place. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to press those two together. Now, because I've greased that, because the clay will not stick to the figurine, what I have to be careful of now is not releasing it. I don't want to release anything. And if I just press down on top, what's going to happen is the clay is going to spread away from the figure. So I have to make sure that everything I do now, I'm sort of working in towards the centre of that figure. So I need to grip around the mould, around the edges, and pull these things in so as they're all joining up. And I don't know if you can see, but there's very little gap now between these two pieces of clay. They're pretty much joining up. They're forming a line, which is great. That's exactly what I want to do. I don't want any gap between the two. But now what I have to do is I have to make sure that when the mould goes together, there is something which locates it into place. If I just make two flat surfaces, you'll notice on this mould, we have these hollows here that correspond with these humps here. Now that's difficult to do here because even if I had pressed dents into one side, the likelihood that the pressing of this clay is actually going to go into them is slim. So what tends to happen on ancient moulds is at the end of the process, they will put in a couple of sort of press downs on the outside that give indentations on the outer part of the mould that will lock together. But it is important that they do that because otherwise you will never find the alignment between the two halves of the figurine, and what you'll have is a front and a back that are totally out of alignment with one another. In the parlance of Staffordshire, of the mould makers, these are natches. Natches are the locating lugs which bring the two halves of the mould together. So that's what I'm going to produce. I'm going to create some natches on here, but the natches are going to be simple. So here we go. We've got the two halves of the mould. I'm going to try and just close those up a little bit more. As I say, I'm not worried too much because I will trim up the outside of this mould before I'm finished, but I'm just going to line those up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is where I think I've got a fairly thick batch of clay, I'm going to just press in and push right across on the other side. So I sort of create a curve in the edge of the mould. And I'll do that here, and I'll do that here. There's no danger that I'm sticking this clay together. This oil is going to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I've got 4 lugs around the outside there, which should give me a nice locking mechanism to make sure that the two halves of the mould go together. I'm going to put that there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to get some cord or some leather strapping, and I'm going to wrap it round this. And the reason I'm going to do that is because as it dries, it will tend to fold apart. And I don't want that to happen. I want the two parts of the mould to remain perfectly in line with one another. So what I tend to do is I tend to strap around them to hold them together. But first of all, time for revelation, I'm going to take these two halves of the mould apart and remove the inner figure, because the clay of the mould is going to shrink. The figure inside is not. If I leave it in there, what's going to happen is the mould's going to shrink around the figurine. It's going to start to crack the mould, and it's going to make it impossible to get the figurine out of there. There's one half of my mould. Here comes the other half. Let's take that out without dropping it. There we go. I'm going to put that there. And these should now gently, because I don't want to put any pressure on, I don't want to change the shape of it, they should both go together beautifully and hold in place. Right, Let me get something to strap it with. I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, here we go. I've got some string. I'm just going to open that up. Take a piece out. There we go. Now, as I say, the main objective here is to hold this in alignment. This is a fairly ugly looking beast at this stage. It's it's very lumpen. That's not a problem. It's the inside that we're interested in, not the outside. Quite often they are rough. I mean, this is a lamp mould that I use on a fairly regular basis to demonstrate lamp making. It's made in the way that quite a lot of ancient Roman ones are, and as you can see, it just is very, very rough in the way it fits together. But it does fit together. It does align. It's got a notch. It's got some dents, etc. It works. So that's what we're aiming for here. So what I'm going to do with this cord is I'm just going to put it around this. I'm being quite gentle here. What I don't want to do is to distort the inside of this mould at this stage. So I'm just going to start that off, and what I'm going to do is overlap this cord on itself. I'm not going to tie knots. I'm just going to overlap it on itself, and I'm going to work all the way down and then all the way back up again. And this cord will just stop the mould from warping as it dries. Now, this will take days to dry. I will not be rushing the drying of it. I don't want it to crack. I don't want it to warp, etc. And it will then have to be dry enough to be fired up to 1,000 degrees. So what you're not going to see in this video is this as a finished fired mould. You will get to see it later. We'll make sure you get to see it later. But basically, this is my mould ready to go. So, Roman mould making done. There we go. Pop that to one side. Watch this space.